So Sahil Kapoor over at Bloomberg is reporting that the Biden campaign is basically, they're trying in the midst of trying to select their vice presidential pick. And they're saying that black voters in particular, they're desiring, according to them, is Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. But the problem they're having is that there are activists so involved. And the activists, they say, want somebody like Kamala Harris. But they say that black Democratic voters support Elizabeth Warren. But Ryan, what mystifies me about this one is black voters rejected both of these people in the 2020 Democratic primary. The only two people that they voted for en masse were Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. Joe Biden overwhelmingly. And actually, if you look at the South Carolina primary results, Pete Buttigieg, who's polled at 1.0% amongst black voters in the state, won more votes than Elizabeth Warren did. So in what world are they saying that black voters prefer Elizabeth Warren over, maybe over Kamala Harris, but more what it is they reject both. And so it just doesn't seem to make any sense when the top of the ticket, Joe Biden, seems to have done quite well with black voters in the first place.
Well, it would have been interesting if there would have been some type of ranked choice voting where people had to pick their top four candidates. Because once you get to, for instance, South Carolina, now your question is, who are we going to pick, Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders?
Right.
Elizabeth Warren wasn't really in it anymore. Buttigieg, like you said, barely campaigned. Now, white voters surged in South Carolina in February. So there's this myth out there that there was this a surge of black voters to the polls on behalf of Joe Biden. That's since been checked against actual voter data, and the exit polls turned out to be wrong. It was there. Yes, it was true that there was an uptick, but it was small in black voters. It was actually a surge in suburban white voters in South Carolina, so that could help explain Buttigieg doing better there.
Yeah.
But if they could have ranked, a lot of people who, and in polls they have ranked, a lot of people who voted for Bernie Sanders had as a second choice Elizabeth Warren, and that's the same for a lot of black voters who supported Bernie Sanders. They want a progressive. And when you're told, okay, your choices here are Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren, it's clear. Like if I want a progressive out of those two, say whatever you want about Elizabeth Warren, she's the progressive of those two.
Right. And I think that the interesting part really is that it's all identitarian, the way that the media and even the Biden campaign is looking at this, being like, oh, well, we need to have, respond to the moment, so we're going to pick Kamala Harris, which, if you look at that on the merits, it's insane, right? Like, I don't agree with a lot of the police rhetoric and all that. But if you did, why would you pick somebody with the prosecutorial record? Right. I think you guys were the first ones to expose that at The Intercept, which is that it's like, wait a second. If you're touting this whole progressive prosecutor thing, that couldn't be farther from the case of her attorney generalship record whenever she was in charge of California.
Yeah, when she launched her career in a San Francisco DA race, running against kind of like the Larry Krasner of the day, saying he was too soft on crime, he was letting too many people go, get too light of sentences. She promised that she was going to be tough. She was going to prosecute all of these drug offenses. She had the support of the police unions, and she ran as an explicitly right wing within San Francisco, tough on crime prosecutor, and she beat him, and she actually governed that way. Like she wasn't kidding, and so that's how she always said she got into the now she says she got into it to reform it from the inside. But you wouldn't run to the right of the reformers with the support of the police union if your goal was to reform it from the inside.
It's also just not true, right?
No, it's not true.
That's
false. But so for the rest of her career, that's kind of how she positioned herself, and the media missed Kamala Harris's campaign in a lot of ways because of the identitarian idea that you talk about here, that they said, well, she's a black woman running for president. She's going to do extremely well with black voters as a result of that.
Couldn't have been
that was just a leap of logic that had no empiricism behind it. But if you talked to black voters and if you looked at polls of black voters, she wasn't connecting with them.
Yeah.
And people thought, well, maybe they don't know her. No,
they're fine.
They know her.
Same with Cory Booker. Yeah. They're like, we know who Cory Booker is. Don't like him.
And maybe they like him.
Right.
But they don't like him enough to vote for him against these other against these other candidates. But then when you narrow it down, and it's Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, well, actually, I like Elizabeth Warren on this front. So, that's certainly, it certainly has Democrats in an unusual situation where you're in the middle of one of the most important civil rights moments since the 1960s, and that's influencing the vice presidential selection. And what actual people are telling you to do is to put the white woman on the ticket as a result of that.
Right.
And that's very hard for these consultants to understand.
Yeah.
And so not all of them, and so there are some that are making that case. But for a lot of others, they just say, well, this is a civil rights moment.
Yes.
We put a black woman on the ticket.
Have to, right.
But there are people in the meetings who are saying, well, hold on a second.
Yeah. Well, I think that's funny. So do you have any reporting or any insight into the vice presidential pick? Where does their heads at right now?
Just that it's wide open in that sense, and that
so between
both
those
are,
two,
yeah, there could always be, so people say, oh, so and so died today as their chances, but if the decision isn't being made until August, you can't ever conclude that, because, and this is throughout history, the choices for vice president often get made, in that moment, based on a news story that doesn't even resonate 3 days later, and now you've changed history.
Right. Particularly scary, given that he's 77 years old. So
right.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
you don't. Yeah. Anything could happen.
All right. We'll have more Rising for you after this.